Happy Father's Day. Welcome to Storytime with Cosmo. Today's theme is stuff that's older than you. So we're going to use stuff that's older than me. And then we'll tell some dad story. So our soap is going to be the Gilded Hand, Dutch, I think. From 1554 is when the company was originated. So this brand was already 400 years old when my dad was born. If that math is right, I don't know, I can't math. The puck looks pretty cool. Got a nice little stamp in it. I've been scooping from this side just because I like the way that looks, so I preserved that. So that is our soap. Our razor today is going to be number 2 out of 3 of these Jim Eveready style Jim Jr. razors. This is the one here that I've already used, and you can see that it's got the Jim Brooklyn, New York in there, and then this one has the deco sort of handle, whereas the one we're using today has similar markings on the inside, but this one has the straight looking lines on it. And then this is the third one where it actually has the deco handle, but this one says Eveready. But this handle is actually longer than that handle. So this one we've already used. This is the one that we're going to use today. And we need a blade for it. I got this Jim PTFE. I don't know how many times I've used it. I stopped keeping track because I'm lazy. All right, all loaded up there. Our brush is an old Eveready brush that it's a 100 Eveready that I just drilled it out. I didn't really do any sort of restoration to it. I kind of like that it looks old. And in haste, all my knots didn't show up that was supposed to go in a bunch of these. So in haste, I didn't put anything on the inside, and I put an AP Shapeco synthetic knot in it. I think it's a 20 millimeter Sinbad, I think. Yeah, so there's that. And what else? And then we're just gonna be using some Gillette Aftershave. So let's get that wet. And we've got some soap scraped out, nothing done to that yet. This is really soft and sort of got a lot of flop to it, so I would imagine this might be a little bit of a process here. We'll see how it goes. But we're talking about, a lot of water foamed up on me right away. Talking about Father's Day and the challenges, something that your dad taught you, or and I thought I'd share kind of a cool story about me and the old man. He and I got 2 brothers and a sister as well, and me and my brothers and my dad, back in the 80s, my dad got into cave exploring, going into caves and with carbide lanterns and helmets and knee pads and all that stuff, and going around and exploring these caves. And one summer, my dad and I went to Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. Mammoth Cave has the claim of being the longest cave in the world, with the most sort of mileage of passageway. Lots of caves have biggest cave, biggest room, the longest cave in this area. I think Mammoth Cave is still the longest cave. And so we went there in the summertime for a volunteer. It was called the Mammoth Cave Restoration Cleanup Project. I think they got some pictures online of it. My dad ended up writing a book about it. I don't know if that book is still around. So what we did was we cleaned up, because the cave has been a tourist attraction for decades, and so the conservation wasn't what it is now. So there's a lot of old garbage in there from old tourist, old bridges and stuff like that, old rotten wood that needed to be hauled out of there. smoke on the ceilings that needed to be cleaned up and all that kind of stuff. So we went there and worked for a week in the summer. We stayed in a little camp in the national park there. And we did that for a number of years. And because we enjoyed caves and exploring caves and all that, we would get some kind of trip. You know, each year there would be some cool caving that was off the beaten path, not a part of a tour, just in some of the wild parts of the caves. And this, you know, there's books about this cave. There's a book called The Longest Cave that describes a expedition that was called the Connection Trip, where they had two cave systems that they knew if they could somehow find a link between them, that would make it the longest cave in the world. And so there's a book called The Longest Cave where it describes this connection trip, where they finally found the passageway that actually joins the two caves together, making it the longest cave in the world, the longest known cave in the world. And so we get a ton of lather. I always go too much with the hard milled soaps. And so one year, I was 14 years old, so late 80s, I guess. One year we got to go do the connection trip, which was a big deal in the caving world to be able to go on that trip, because it's not part of the open cave that you can buy a tour to. This is a 14-hour trip underground through some pretty hectic terrain. And I was 14 years old. And technically, at the time, I don't know if it's still the case, but at the time you had to be 16 to go off trail. So, but you know, they let me do it. So we went through this connection trip, and we went through all of the different little formations and everything that were described in this book, the S-curve and the keyhole and all these different areas that were sort of famous amongst the caving folks, who are just as passionate about caving as other people are about wet shaving. You know, it's just a group of nerds. And so made it all the way through this trip, 14 hours of pretty, you know, some of it was pretty hectic conditions. Underground caves are typically around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And at the end of it, I fell asleep on the floor of a thing at Floyd Collins' house. Floyd Collins was a sort of infamous caving guy from back in the day. And my dad was having to swat the horseflies off of me. I was just passed out, you know, but at the time I was the youngest person to have ever completed the connection trip. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's not like I got a plaque or anything, but just the fact that you have to be 16 to go off trail. And we were a little less litigious as a society back then. I don't know that you'd get approval for something like that nowadays. Who knows? All right, so I got enough lather for 32 people here, and this has really worked up quite the pile of lather. Good thing we got story time to kill some time, right? So my dad ended up becoming the sort of leader of that restoration thing for a number of years, and he, after I left and moved out to California, he went on to do it, and my whole family got involved over the years, and it was just a really cool experience. But what it did was it taught me you know, volunteering, getting out, doing stuff, being interested in things, doing things that are difficult. You know, 14 hours of climbing through some caves and pretty tight passageways, and the only light that's in there is the light that's on the top of your helmet, you know, and so it's an interesting experience. But I think that I got a lot of good lessons from the old man in those years, going through and spending all that time at Mammoth Cave. And so Mammoth Cave is a big part of our family's sort of history. You know, it'll always come up at some point when we're chit-chatting about the past. So it was a good time. I haven't been back in a cave since. Just not my deal. Not that I'm against it, just haven't gone out to do it. So the soap just has sort of a bright, fresh, clean, soapy smell. We've got 10 years worth of lather built up in there. So let's give it a shot and see what we can get going here. Can't even feel the brush at all. I think there's so much soap in there but it's extremely soft and it's pretty floppy. Could probably use to be set a little bit deeper. No scrub at all. Got a good shine to it though. Tastes like soap. So let's get out the Jim Jr. I've been lathering for ages, so kind of tired of it now. Let's see how this little thing does. I like to ride that cap, just not right on it, but ooh, back a little bit. Cool thing about these is you get a lot of audio feedback from it. And I got a really close shave yesterday with that shick, so not a lot to cut. Still need some more water though. Now we're going to get this wet real quick. This is probably enough soap to still shave again. But we gotta get this little zone under the nose here. That's where most of my hair is anyway. Better slickness now, a little bit more water in there. Slick enough to need to remove it. Yeah, a lot of good slickness in there. Feels good. Not a bad soap. Just using that corner to get up in there. That ought to do it. So our aftershave, we're going with some of the grocery store stuff, but we're sticking with an older brand because it's older stuff day. We're going to use this Gillette aftershave gel. I remember this being okay. We'll see. For sensitive skin, it says, because everybody has got sensitive skin and super coarse hair. Except me. My skin's super easy. And I'm not all that hairy. I can admit it. This stuff feels good. I think it ends up getting a little bit sticky, but we'll see how it feels. But it leaves like a nice lotiony feel on there. Our fragrance for today, I just grabbed a sample. Mancera, Cedrat Boise. I don't know, no French here. We'll see what it smells like. I just figured Mancera's probably been around for a while. Can't find the spray nozzle. Got a woody sort of patchouli thing going on. More of a fall fragrance, I think. Maybe Cedrat cedar. But yeah, I got some patchouli in there. I think, I'm guessing. Again, I don't look at scent notes, but so yeah, not bad. The Gilded Hand. Why not? I think that's Dutch, right? The Jim Junior, I guess, another. We'll call it Jim Junior #2. The old Ever-Ready is buried in lather now. This knot's a little too soft and not my jam. I like the 2-bed better. And then Gillette, the best a man can get. All right, so there we gave a little shout out to the old man taking a young Cosmo out into the world and doing some physical labor, sweating and catching hypothermia at one point, and you know, getting some good life lesson stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that that you're not going to get in the house. You got to get out there and get it. So I'll always appreciate those years. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And we will see everyone for Lather Games Monday, whatever that event is. We'll find out.